Ladies and gentlemen, back in the 90s, the gamut of sitcoms became a high-influx norm. This was actually the case 2 decades before that, but because 30 years had passed since the 60s, the production of TV shows in general simply increased. One of the worst TV shows from this time period was one that was actually quite popular. Airing every Wednesday night during the school year was Home Improvement. The show starred Tim Allen, the guy whose face was densely ubiquitous from the 90s and into last decade. Mostly pure crap and dumpster sludge is what he was delivered in. He actually has another sitcom which began back in October of this year. I haven't seen any of it aside from bits from the advertisements, but I can tell it's essentially the same show as Home Improvement, except with all female offspring characters this time, instead of 3 boys. Same LCD jokes about the contrast of men versus women for another 8 TVPG years. That is, if it makes it past 3 or 4 seasons, because Home Improvement was absolutely lame. The show was about a father of 3 named Tim Taylor who stars in a cable TV show called Tool Time in which Pamela Anderson jiggled her tits for every introduction and Tim prattled off in nasal tone about home improvement related things, typically fucking everything up on camera and having a character arc which has co-host Al that never goes anywhere. Typically, Tim fucked things up, and Al was there to correct him without any inclination of resigning to secure his reputation from being repeatedly humiliated on TV every time they were shooting. Al is not very interesting either. Very hollow for a supporting character, honestly. Most of the episodes in this series contains plots and dialogue segments which are intended to poke fun at stereotypes and the differences between men and women, husband and wife, vice versa. The premise is so primitive, even for the early 90s. The 3 kids were there to widen the show's demographic past lemmingly adults, although you never see them do anything very interesting, except reveal their plots through talk and everything explained happening behind the scenes. What a load of ass. The 5 of them lived in a house with a blue and gray fire, reminiscent to the color of transit bus seats. Jill mostly wallowed about the house, sulking, helplessly, cooking for Tim's talentless ass, as he cracks jokes in his nasal tone voice. He was like Barney without the dinosaur costume. Let me be clear about one thing, Tim Allen is not, I repeat, not a funny person. Making grunting, ape and caveman talk, or any other stupid noises coming out his mouth are not going to make me, or anybody with a 3-digit IQ laugh, or even chuckle. Whatever his stand-up routine is like, that of which I've never witnessed, likely doesn't translate into his show or his motherfucking movies, at all. They had a neighbor named Wilson whose mouth was never shown on camera. This was the idiot producer's way of differentiating Home Improvement from all the other sitcoms. In other words, it was one of the show's unique trademarks. Wilson was a dull character, regardless of this so-called unique characteristic, always displaying an air of pseudo-intellectualism with lines just as unfunny as Tim's. And Tim was the only one who ever did scenes with him. The only reason why Wilson's face was never shown was because it was actually monstrous looking. One of the kids in the show was Randy, the middle child, played by Jonathan Taylor Thomas. He was apparently a heartthrob for girls all across America, and everyone across the globe didn't season enough to have liked this show. He left before the final season, and Al would not blame him. Mark was the youngest child who used to get picked on by Randy and Brad. As the series progressed, the writing for his character became victim of lazy writing decisions that resulted in another shallow character in the series. Brad was the oldest and the stupidest of the 3. His character is written to be the jock in the family, so no surprise there. Like Bart Simpson, he never got good grades, but he managed to get a scholarship to UCLA for kicking a soccer ball around for his school team. In the later years of the show, the boys' acting and reads had become sterile, especially for Brad and Mark. Home Improvement never had any tang to it. Like many other sitcoms, it boiled down to a bunch of teasing dialogue, with no real action ever occurring. All the while, Tim Allen was earning $50 million or so per season. I don't know how anybody out there feels about that, but this is the biggest reason why the vast majority of sitcoms are the scourge of television. This reason alone is why most of the sitcoms, before 2000 have not stood the test of time. And these shows usually have that never-ending, and completely unnecessary laugh track, because without it, nobody would have a clue what would make them laugh at these shows, for over half the time. Some of the worst episodes from this show, which I recall having a front-row displeasure of watching, include the one where Tim spied in Randy, Brad, and Mark from Wilson's yard, because one of them had marijuana on them. The only appealing thing about this show was the set decorum, which sadly never a focus in any episode. I was only 8 or 9 years old at the time, and all I was looking for was some sort of action. Little did childhood me know, reciting diluted puns before a laugh track was all the makers of this show were capable of. So, they are the ones to blame. There was always that light at the end of the tunnel of Tool and Ting Allen Torment session, and that was seeing and hearing the Touchstone television logo chiming at the end of the episode. But I had heard that less and less over the years, because if Home Improvement ever came on any station, aside from ABC, I was likely to switch to another channel before the episode ended. That is, if it wasn't 28 or 58 minutes into the hour. My god, what a crap TV show it was. I discourage everyone out there from watching Home Improvement. There should be a petition to have the show removed from any network that its executives decide to provide it a time slot. So cancel Last Man Standing. It's going to suck bigger ass than that Home Improvement game that was on both the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Home Improvement Nos Austria Janus.